Hello everyone, and here is the lesson on how to choose whether to use the law of sines or the law of cosines. So first of all, you're going to see that there's a very unusual paper on the screen in front of you. This is actually the worksheet and the notes combined together. It is on the Google Classroom. So if you would go to the classroom, if you haven't done so already, pause the video, go to the classroom and download this document so you have it to refer to as I go through the notes. All right, let's get started. This first page is really not necessary. We're going to go ahead and go straight to the second page. Now notice at the top they have the law of sines and the law of cosines listed up there, but they didn't write them quite correctly, so we're going to fix a couple things. I'm going to make this a little bigger. First of all, remember that angles must be capital letters, so this needs to be a capital A, capital B, capital C. Here, same thing, capital A, capital B, capital C. The law of cosines is correct, but they don't have the second form of it, which is the one where you're solving for the angle. So let's go ahead and write that down as well. That is cosine of capital A equals fraction bar. And then it's little b squared plus little c squared minus little a squared over 2bc, which remember means 2 times b times c. Now, which of the two laws is the most complicated to use? Well, I will tell you right now that it happens to be the law of cosines. So the law of sines tends to be our one we would like to do first if we can. So what we're going to talk about is when we have to use the law of cosines and then when we can use the law of sines. So as you see here below, it says the law of cosines is the best choice if you know all 3 sides of the triangle and you're trying to find an angle. Now, I like to use the capital letter S for side and the capital letter A for angles, and this is something that is covered in geometry classes. So this is a scenario we call SSS, side, side, side. We know all 3 sides. So if it's an SSS problem, you use the law of cosines. The second case is when you know 2 sides and an enclosed angle. The angle is between the 2 sides. Here's my little, I now have a little dot that I can use to emphasize things. The angle is in between the 2 sides. So we call this side angle side. So you're trying to find the side that's opposite the angle. So that is another situation where you have no choice, but you have to use the law of cosines. Now, the law of sines is best used if you know 2 sides and the angle opposite one of those sides is known. That should be known. So we would call this one, if you went around the triangle, starting at one of the sides, it would be side, side, angle. Then do you see that the angle is not between the 2 sides? That's the difference. So this is what we call side, side, angle. This is when you use the law of sines. And here is the final case. You know 2 angles and 1 side. And we call this one, if you go around the triangle, here's where you start, angle, angle, side, if you hit all of them. So this is angle, angle, side. Okay? And notice at the bottom it says, in general, the law of sines is easier to use, so always check and see if you can use it first. Now, I'm going to give you the big key to doing this. If you have an angle and its opposite side, if you have an angle and its opposite side, you can use the law of sines. That's the key. If you have an angle and its opposite side, you can use the law of sines. Let's take a look at the 2 that we have in front of us right here. Do we have an angle? Yes, the 115. This one right here. Do we have its opposite side? Yes, we have the 49. Since we have those 2, we can use the law of sines. Come down here. Do we have an angle? Well, we have 2 of them. Do we know 48's opposite side? No. Do we know 22's opposite side? Yes. If we know an angle and its opposite side, we can use the law of sines, and that's what we want to use. If we don't know an angle and its opposite side, you have to use the law of cosines. So that is the key right there to doing this lesson. Look for an angle and its opposite side. Let's go back up to the top. Now here, on case 1, we don't know any angles, so we have to use the law of cosines. Here we know an angle, we know one angle, but we don't know its opposite side, so we have to use the law of cosines. So I hope you see what this phrase means. If you have an angle and its opposite side, you can use the law of sines. And that's what we're going to do as we go forward. All right, let's go to the next page. So we're going to do a couple of these together, and then the rest is going to be your assignment to do. The question says, state whether the law of sines or the law of cosines is the best choice to solve for x for the given figure. Substitute the values into the formula, but do not solve it. So you don't need your calculator for this part. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to label my picture in blue so it kind of stands out a little bit differently when I do this. Okay, so you really don't even need to understand the side angle, side stuff. All you need to do is look at the picture and say, do I know an angle and its opposite side? Well, I see here I have an angle, and it has to be an angle you know. It cannot be an angle that you're looking for. Here's an angle. Do I know its opposite side? Yes. So I can use the law of sines. Okay, because the law of sines is easier. That's the one I want to use. Now, when we did the law of sines, it doesn't matter which angle you call what. So I can call this angle A, this angle B, this angle C, but make sure you get your sides correct. This is side what? B. This is side, the 12 is side A. Okay. Now, we don't need to put a C on the side C because we're not looking for that. We're looking for this angle right here. So when we're looking for angles, remember that we put the sines on top when we write our formula. So when we write the formula, it's going to be sine of A over little a equals, which ones do I know? The 12 and the 112 and the b's. So I'm going to say sine of B over little b. Now that's not the formula they want. They want the numbers in there. So I'm going to actually turn this thing around because I want to put the one, actually no I'm not. I'm going to leave it the way it is and write it the way I have it. Sine of angle A over, what's side A? 12 equals sine of angle B, 112, over side B, 25. And there's my answer. That's what I want. Okay? All right, next problem. Same directions. So, what do I have here? Do I have any angles? Nope, I don't. If I have no angles at all, I have to use the law of cosines. I don't have a choice. Okay? Now, since I am looking for an angle, the law of cosine says to make life easier, we're going to call that angle A. The one we're looking for is always angle A. So, the other two angles doesn't matter. B and C. Oops, I'm writing in the wrong color. So I'm going to go back and I'm going to fix it because I want to stay consistent. So this is angle A, this is B, this is C, this is side B, this is side A, this is side C. It's very important that you stay consistent with where the sides are. Now, we need to use the formula that was back on the other page. Now, I'm not going to go and pull it up. I happen to know what it is. So we're just going to go ahead and write it down. Cosine of x, or A, equals fraction bar b squared, 55 squared, plus c squared, 37 squared, minus 30 squared. That's b squared minus plus c squared minus a squared over 2 times side B, 55, times side C, 37. And there is your problem. Number 5. This is a little trickier. Do I have an angle? I have 2 of them. Usually if you have 2 of them, you can use the law of sines. Let's check and see. So Here is 108. Do I know its opposite side? Nope. Here is 40. Do I know its opposite side? Yep, it's 20. Okay, so because I know an angle and its opposite side, I get to use the law of sines. Okay, remember it does not matter how you label your angles, ABC. Let's get our sides correct though. That's side A. I'm looking for side C. I'm not going to label side B. So this is going to be, since I'm looking for a side, I put the sides on top. A over sine of capital A equals C over sine of capital C. Now wait a minute. There's going to be a problem. Do you see it already? If not, I'll point it out to you when we get there. Let's start plugging numbers in. 20 over sine of 40 degrees equals C over sine of what? Oh, we don't know what angle C is. It's not marked, but can you find it? What do you know about the angles of a triangle? They add up to be what number? It's 180. So since I know two of them, I can find the third. 140 plus 108 is 148. And if I subtract 180 minus 148, I'm going to get 32. So this angle here is 32. So I had to do a little math before I could even set up my problem. So there is the answer to that one. Okay, we're going to move on to the next page. I want you to please mark out numbers 9 and 10, and actually number 8 as well. We're going to be dealing with situations where you only have the given picture. Now, let's look at number 7. Boy, number 7 has a lot of stuff written on it. Now, I see all three sides, but I also see angles. So, since I see some angles, that's the first thing I want to look for. Do I see an angle that I know? Yes. Do I see its opposite side? Yes. So, even though it's a side situation, I can still use the law of sines because I know an angle and its opposite side. I want you to pause the video and I want you to try to set this one up yourself. Let's go ahead and label this triangle. I'm going to call this A and B and C. This is side A, side B, and side C. So since it's law of sines, you have to do, how do you know which ones to use? You always use the one where you know the angle and opposite side. So this would be sine of A over A equals, which one am I looking for? B or C? I happen to be looking for the B stuff. So I'm going to put sine of B over B. So now let's plug in the numbers. Sine of A, 50, over little a, 40, equals sine of B, or X, doesn't matter, over 32. And that is the correct answer for this one. All right. Now, for your practice, I suggest you go back and you do 2, 4, and 6, because you don't have to solve them, and then come down here and look at these. Now look at the directions for 11 and 13. It says find the missing dimensions of the triangle. That means to find all the sides and all the angles. So you may have to do law of sines, you may have to do law of cosines, you may have to use the fact that the angles add up to 180 degrees in order to do the problem. So you need to go through and do these. There is not enough room on this paper to finish these problems. 11 through 14, 15, and 16 are achieve level problems. When you get to 17 through 20, you're dealing with merit and excellence levels problems. So if you're not planning to strive for merit or excellence, you don't need to really do 17 through 20, but in my answer key, I do have them all done. I will say one more thing. If you're doing a situation where you're solving for an angle, and none of these up to here do. when you're actually solving for the whole triangles, you're trying to find all the angles in the triangle. On any of these problems, if you end up getting an error message in your calculator, that means it is a no solution scenario, and sometimes that actually does happen. As you look through the answer key, you may, especially if you get into the challenge problems, come up with a no solution scenario. So don't be surprised by that. Just realize that sometimes you're going to get a no solution. So when you do your inverse cosine or inverse sine, you may get a no solution scenario. All right, good luck with this assignment. And if you need some help, come and see me in the Google Meet help room, or you can send me an email. Thank you.